Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. So today I have my update for my Pan Those eyeshadows. So I have all 5 of my palettes here and I'm just going to run through these in the order that I rolled them in. And as always, I want to just refresh my rules. So the way I can roll shades out are 1, to hit pan on a shade, 2, have it in the project for 2 or more months, or 3, use it 10 or more times. So I am really excited to share my progress on these shades with you. Alright, up first we have my Nomad Royal Europe palette, and I had the first shade from this palette. So that is this yellow orangey matte shade up in the corner, and I used this one 3 times this past month for a total of 6 uses within this project. So it has been in for the 2 months, so this one will be rolling out. But I had a lot of fun playing with this one. This is a palette that's a little bit intimidating to me, just with kind of the darker jewel tone colors, the multi-chromes on the bottom, but it is such a fun one to play around with, and I definitely enjoyed creating the few looks that I did with this one, and I think 6 uses for a shade within this project for me is pretty good. I knew I wasn't going to hit pan on it, and I am really happy with the progress that I did make. Next up we have my Profusion Mixed Metals Peach palette, and I had the shade Ecstatic. So Ecstatic is this shade in the corner, and I only used this once this past month for a total of 4 uses within this project. Honestly, I just wasn't really focusing on this one. I wasn't super excited about it. I enjoyed it more the first month it was in. It had been a while since I had reached for this palette, and I was excited to get a few uses, but this past month just seriously went down. I was happy I got at least 1 use out of it, but obviously that's just not a lot. But since it has been in for 2 months, I am going to roll it out just because I want to focus on something else, which is why I put that 2-month rule in place. So I did get a little bit of use, a little bit of progress on this shade. It is a nice shade, not my absolute favorite, but it is a nice kind of staple one for more pinky tone looks. So it is fun to use, but I just really wasn't reaching for it. Alright, next up we have my ColourPop It's a Princess Thing palette, and I had the shade Enchanted Rose. So Enchanted Rose is this one down here, and I know a lot of you were probably hoping I would hit pan on this one. I was too, but I did use this one 4 times this past month for a total of 9 uses within this project. So again, this one has hit the 2-month mark, and I think I am going to roll this one out. I don't feel like I'm as close to pan as I might hope, and I don't want to force it, and I feel like if I keep this one in for another month, I'm going to kind of get antsy to hit pan, so I'm going to kind of dig in there, and I just really don't want to do that. So I think I am going to roll this out, set this one aside for now, but I know I will definitely come back to that shade and hit pan on it, maybe even later this year. Alright, next up we have my Kyla Rococo palette, and I had the shade Allegory. So Allegory is this matte orangish shade on the side here, and I reached for this one twice this past month for a total of 4 uses within this project. I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but as I've mentioned before, orange is not my favorite shade to wear, and even though I do really enjoy this orange, it still isn't a color I'm reaching for a ton. So I was able to get a couple good uses on it, had some fun playing around with it and reaching into this palette a little bit. but I am, again, ready to roll this one out since it has been in for 2 months. I am happy that I am getting at least a little bit of progress on these shades, even though I am cycling through them without hitting pan. I do like just kind of reaching for the shades and not kind of pressuring myself and being able to cycle through my collection more. Alright, then our last palette in comes from my Wet n Wild and Pac-Man Game Over palette, and it is shade number 9. So this one I actually have an exciting update on. So after 12 uses this month, I did hit pan on it. There is a little baby pan within that shade, and I'm super excited. I noticed when I was looking at this after I rolled it in last month that there was kind of more of a dip in here than I originally thought. And so I was using this a lot in my inner corner, sometimes as a lid shade. So I did get 12 uses on this month to hit pan. I think I used it over 30 times total to hit pan, so I think that is a pretty good number, a pretty standard number, I would say. So super excited, and I feel like seeing another pan in this palette makes me want to show more progress within this palette. The reason that I haven't wanted to is because the little imprints are so cute and I haven't wanted to mess them up, but I do have pictures of them, so I am free to use this palette. It's just kind of a mental thing at this point, but hitting that pan definitely helped. This was just a super nice white shimmer shade. It's one I've used a lot in this palette already, so really, really excited that I did get pan in this shade and another pan in my collection. So all 5 of my shades are rolling out. We are going to have a full refresh, which I am super excited about. But before we get into that, into rolling in the shades, I want to talk about my Expand the Pan palette as well. So for those of you who don't know, my Expand the Pan is where I roll in a shade from my collection that has pan on it, and my goal is to use it 5 times. I just found that when I hit pan on a shade, I tend to kind of neglect it, so I wanted to just add this in to my Pan Those Eyeshadows project as a way to get some use out of shades that already have pan on them already. So from this palette, I rolled in the second shade. So that is this just off-white cream matte shade. I am hoping there is at least a little difference within this pan. This is probably my biggest pan in my collection. It was already pretty big, so I am hoping that you can see some progress on this one. Super easy to use. I did use it the 5 times, mostly as a blending out shade. I used it once just to kind of set down my lids, and it was the only shade I used. So I don't think I have all of the pictures of the times I used this one, just because they weren't the most exciting, but this is just a nice staple shade, and I'm happy I got some more use on it. Alright, I have my Pretty Random app set from 1 to 1012, and this number is lower than in previous months because there are some palettes I am thinking about decluttering from my collection, so I did pull those off of my spreadsheet already just because I don't really want to roll them in if I am planning on decluttering them, and I'll talk more about those at a later date. But I have the rest of my shadows in my spreadsheet, so if I get a shade that has pan on it, has already been in this project, or is from a palette that just rolled out, I will re-roll. Other than that, everything is fair game. So 584 comes from my IBY Boho palette, and it is the shade Gypsy Goddess. 766 comes from my ColourPop Sweet As Can Be palette, and it is the shade Sing Ho. 340 comes from my Rude Cosmetics Roaring 20s Neons palette, and it is the shade Featured. 984 comes from my Rude Cosmetics Roaring 20s Indulgence palette, and it is the shade Zoot Suit. And final shade $6.73 comes from my BH Cosmetics Miss Claus palette, and it is the shade Spice Girl. So before I grab all of those, I'm going to roll in my Expand the Pan shade, and I have not cleared out this list, so I am going to just let you know if this one is eligible to roll in. So we get number 21, and 21 comes from my ColourPop Midnight Masquerade palette and is the shade Spinning Wheel, and I am definitely excited to roll that one in. So I'm going to go grab all these shades and be right back. Alright, the first shade we rolled in comes from my IBY Boho palette, and it is the shade Gypsy Goddess, which is this matte yellow shade in the corner. I have recently reached for this palette a couple of times, and it is one that is really fun to play with. I struggle a little bit with looks to create with it, just because I feel like there is such a variety even within these 9 colors. But I am excited to hopefully get some good use on that shade. Next up we have my ColourPop Sweet as Can Be palette. This is the most adorable packaging of a palette. Absolutely love it. And the shade we rolled in is Sing Ho, which is this kind of darker green shimmer shade. That's not a shade I reach for a ton within this palette, but I think this will be a good opportunity to use it, test it out a little bit more, and get some good use on this palette as well, especially for the springtime. Alright, then we rolled in my Rude Cosmetics Roaring Twenties Neons palette. So the shade that got rolled in is Featured, which is this dark purple shimmer shade. I have only reached for that one a handful of times. I feel like when I reach into this palette, I'm reaching for the brighter, lighter shades, but I do enjoy a good purple, so it'll be fun to test that one out some more. I did have the shade Electric in my project last year, and I did hit pan on that within that project. So I'm half hoping that I'll be able to get at least some good progress, but I would love to see a pan. The pan was shallower than I thought it was going to be when I hit this one, but who knows if this one is going to be the same. Sometimes with these palettes I find that the pans have different depths to them, which is kind of weird, but I am really looking forward to getting some use on that shade, and hopefully I can show some good progress. And then one of the other Rude Cosmetics Roaring Twenties palettes, this is their Indulgence palette, and I rolled in the shade Zoot Suit, which is this one right here. It is a kind of pink to white shifting shade, which is going to be super pretty. I have used this one in the inner corner a few times. This is a newer palette in my collection, but super excited to be rolling this in. I absolutely love this, and it gives me some really nice neutrals to work on as well. And then the last palette for Pan Those Eyeshadows is my BH Cosmetics Miss Claus So Spoiled palette, and I rolled in the shade Spice Girl, which is this kind of mid-tone warm brown matte shade. This is going to be just a nice, easy shade for me to work on. I like having at least a couple neutrals within my rotation, so very happy this one is rolling in, and again, it'll give me a chance to reach for this palette a little more. Alright, then my last shade to talk about is from my Expand the Pan project, and this is my ColourPop Midnight Masquerade palette, and the shade that is rolling in is Spinning Wheel. I feel like Zoot Suit and Spinning Wheel kind of look similar. This one has a little bit of a pink shift to it as well. I don't know if it'll pick up on camera, but I do feel like these are similar, but since this one I only have to use 5 times, and the other one I can use as many times as I want, I feel like I will get use out of both of them, but I feel like I am going to be using this for similar reasons, but I absolutely adore this palette. I'm so excited it's rolling in, even if it's just for 5 uses. Maybe I'll do a couple more, who knows, but super excited this one is rolling in. So here are my 5 Pan Those Eyeshadows palettes all stacked up. I am very excited about this round. I will insert a picture of the swatches so you can see. I definitely feel like we have an interesting mix of colors, but I do have a couple neutrals within this rotation, so I am excited about that. And yeah, I'm just excited to see what kind of use I can get on these shades. Let me know what you guys think of this project. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future uploads. And with all of that said, I will see you in my next video. Bye!